They gave him a captive as a reward, but what he did next would shake an empire built on cruelty. Captain Marcus Chun did not wake up gently. He woke to pain. Cold metal pressed against his back. His wrists burned from tight restraints. The air smelled like rust and chemicals. When his vision cleared, 3 towering reptilian figures stood above him. Their scales were dark green, almost black. Their eyes were sharp yellow slits. Their teeth curved outward when they smiled. And they were smiling. Marcus remembered the explosion. His fighter ship had been struck during a reconnaissance mission near Zegari territory. He had tried to stabilize the engine, but the controls died in his hands. Then there was fire. Then darkness. Now he was here. The human breathes, one of the aliens said in rough, broken English. The tallest stepped forward. He wore armor decorated with red and gold markings. I am High Commander Vextal of the Zegari Empire. You are alive because we choose it. Marcus tested his restraints. Solid alloy. No weakness. He forced his breathing to slow. If you're going to kill me, do it. Vextal made a deep clicking sound that might have been laughter. No. You are not punishment. You are celebration. Marcus frowned. You are the first human pilot captured alive in 3 cycles. That is impressive. In our culture, such a victory deserves honor. Marcus had studied the Zegari. They respected power. They worshipped conquest. They believed the strong deserved to rule the weak. I don't want your honor, Marcus said. That is irrelevant, Vextal replied calmly. You will receive it. They released him from the table but kept heavy shackles on his wrists and ankles. Guards escorted him through long metallic corridors. The walls displayed images of burning cities and kneeling species. Victory trophies. They stopped before a large chamber lined with energy cages. Inside each cage stood beings from many worlds, tall furred creatures, small silver-skinned figures, winged beings with broken feathers. Slaves. At the center of the room stood a transparent containment field. Inside, it was a single figure. She sat quietly, back straight despite exhaustion. Her skin shimmered faint blue under the lights. Long white hair fell over her shoulders. Her eyes shifted colors like living stars. Marcus had read about her species. The Lyrians. Peaceful scientists. Artists. Engineers of living technology. They never built weapons. The Zegari had conquered them easily. This is Erin, Vextal said proudly. A Lyrian bioengineer. Intelligent. Valuable. Beautiful. A rare prize. Erin slowly looked up. Her eyes met Marcus's. There was fear there. But there was also something else. Defiance. She is your reward, Vextal continued. You will own her. Use her. Command her. That is your honor. Marcus felt something cold twist in his chest. Humans don't keep slaves, he said quietly. The Zegari guards hissed in confusion. You misunderstand, Vextal said. Ownership is strength. Strength is natural. No, Marcus answered. Freedom is natural. The chamber fell silent. Vextal studied him. You refuse. Marcus looked at Erin again. She expected him to claim her, to become another master. Instead, he said something that none of them expected. I accept responsibility for her. The Zegari smiled, thinking they had won. The containment field dropped. Guards dragged Erin forward and removed her chains. She stood unsteady but proud. Marcus stepped closer. Then he did something that froze the entire room. He knelt. He lowered himself so their eyes were level. My name is Marcus, he said gently. You are not my property. You are under my protection. Erin blinked in confusion. Vextal's tail lashed against the floor. What are you doing? Marcus stood slowly. You gave her to me. That means she is under my authority. Yes, Vextal replied. And I say she is free. The room erupted in angry clicking. That is not how ownership works. Vextal growled. It is now, Marcus said calmly. The Zegari valued dominance. But they valued honor more. A gift given publicly could not be revoked without weakness. Vextal's eyes narrowed. Very well. Keep your experiment. When she betrays you, remember this moment. They were placed in a shared holding chamber. When the door sealed, silence filled the room. Erin stayed near the far wall. Marcus removed his shackles slowly. The Zegari had left hers off. He pointed to one side of the room. That is yours. I won't touch you. I won't command you. She studied him carefully. Her voice was soft, musical. Why? He understood the word. Because it's right. She approached cautiously. Zegari say humans fight with fire. Destroy worlds. Sometimes we do, Marcus admitted. But we also build. We protect. We choose. Erin's eyes shifted from violet to soft blue. You are strange, she said. He smiled slightly. Yeah. We get that a lot. Over the next days, they spoke in simple words. She learned English quickly. He learned fragments of her language. He discovered she specialized in living systems, organic technology that could grow structures stronger than steel. Her people had hidden knowledge before the invasion. Knowledge the Zegari wanted. You are not just prisoner, she said one night quietly. You are soldier. Yes. You plan something. Marcus looked at the ceiling where hidden cameras likely watched. Humans always plan something. Outside the chamber, Vextal observed through surveillance feeds. The human did not dominate, did not strike, did not command. He shared food equally. He gave space. He listened. This made no sense. Weeks passed. Something unexpected began to spread through the prison. Other captives saw how Marcus treated Erin. They began speaking more boldly to guards. They began standing taller. Hope is contagious. The Zegari did not understand hope. One evening, Erin sat close to Marcus. Why protect me? She asked softly. He thought carefully. Because someone has to break the cycle. She tilted her head. Cycle. Strong crush weak. Weak become strong. Then they crush others. It never ends. And you stop it. I try. Her eyes shimmered bright silver. My people believed no one would stand for us. Marcus looked at her seriously. Humans don't stand because it's easy. We stand because it's hard. Above them, unseen by both, Vextal clenched his claws. The human was changing the atmosphere of his prison. And that was dangerous. Very dangerous. What Vextal did not realize yet was this. Marcus had already begun Phase 1. And the greatest weapon humanity ever created was not fire. It was choice. The Zegari believed fear kept order. They did not understand that sometimes, fear creates courage. 3 weeks after Marcus was given his reward, the prison felt different. It was subtle at first. Prisoners stood straighter when guards passed. They spoke in quiet whispers when cameras turned away. Small gestures, sharing food, helping the injured stand, passing hidden signals, began to spread from cell to cell. And at the center of it all was something the Zegari had never accounted for. Kindness. Marcus did not shout. He did not fight the guards. He did not try to break the door. He simply treated every being he saw as if they mattered. And that idea was more dangerous than any weapon. Erin noticed it first. They watch you, she said one evening, her silver blue eyes flickering toward the ceiling. I know, Marcus replied. You are not afraid. I'm always afraid, he said calmly. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting anyway. She studied him carefully. Your people always think this way. He smiled faintly. Not always. But when it matters, yes. Erin moved closer, lowering her voice. I have not told you everything. Marcus' attention sharpened. When Zegari attacked my world, she continued, we were not completely unprepared. We knew they were expanding. Some of us began, Quiet research. Research into weapons? Marcus asked. No, she said firmly. Into survival. She extended her hand slowly. Her fingertips glowed faintly. Lyrian bioengineering. My people do not build machines, she explained. We grow them. Marcus leaned forward. We created something hidden. Something that adapts. Something that can change structures from within. He understood immediately. You planted it somewhere, he said. Erin nodded. In many places. Including this prison. Marcus felt a pulse of excitement. What is it? A living network, she whispered. It sleeps inside the walls. It feeds on heat and electricity. It grows slowly. The Zegri scanners cannot detect it because it is not metal. It is organic. Marcus stared at the grey walls around them. How long? It needs time, she replied. But with guidance, it can disrupt systems. Doors. Surveillance. Weapons. Marcus let out a slow breath. This was not just survival. This was opportunity. Why tell me now? He asked. Erin's eyes glowed brighter. Because you are different. You do not seek power. You seek balance. He shook his head. I seek freedom. Same thing, she said softly. Unseen by them, Commander Vextal reviewed reports in his command chamber. Prisoner morale had shifted. Guards reported increased eye contact. Defiant posture. Less visible fear. These beings are captives, Vextal growled. Why do they not break? A subordinate hesitated. The human. Commander. He influences them. Influences. Vextal snapped. He is chained. Yes, but not in mind. Vextal's claws tightened against the console. He ordered increased surveillance. Inside the cell, Marcus paced slowly. If your network can grow, he said quietly, we need to protect it. Erin nodded. It responds to signals. I can guide it through touch. Marcus glanced at the walls. Cameras watched constantly. We need a distraction, he murmured. As if summoned by the idea, a disturbance erupted down the corridor. A massive four-armed prisoner shoved a guard away from his food tray. The guard raised a shock baton. Before the strike landed, Marcus moved. He stepped between them. Stop, he shouted. The guard snarled. Move, human. Marcus raised his hands slowly. He is starving. You cut his ration. Not your concern. It is, Marcus replied firmly. He is under my protection. The words echoed. Other prisoners lifted their heads. The guard hesitated. Protocol was unclear. The human was technically honored property. Marcus lowered his voice. If you beat him now, the others will resist. You will have a riot. The guard glanced around. The tension was real. After a moment, he shoved the tray back toward the prisoner and walked off angrily. The corridor buzzed with quiet energy. Marcus had not fought. He had reasoned. Back inside the cell, Erin stared at him. You challenged authority openly. Sometimes you don't fight strength with strength, Marcus said. You fight it with intelligence. She placed her hand against the wall. Her fingers glowed softly. Marcus felt it. A faint vibration. The living network responding. It grows faster when hope rises, she whispered. He blinked. What? It feeds on neural energy. Emotion. Cooperation. That is how Lyrian cities function. Marcus stared at her in awe. You're telling me your species built living cities powered by community? She smiled faintly. Yes. He laughed quietly. That's the most human thing I've ever heard from an alien. The next morning, Vextal entered the detention block personally. His presence silenced everything. He stopped before Marcus's cell. You spread disorder, the commander said coldly. I prevented violence, Marcus replied calmly. You undermine authority. I exposed weakness. Vextal's eyes burned yellow. You believe kindness makes you strong. Marcus met his gaze without flinching. No. Choice makes us strong. Choice. Vextal hissed. Yes. I could dominate. I don't. That is power. The words lingered in the air. Vextal leaned closer. You think your softness will save you? Marcus shook his head. No. But it might save you. The commander froze. Your empire conquers, Marcus continued. But it doesn't build loyalty. You rule through fear. Fear always cracks. Vextal straightened sharply. You presume to teach me. No, Marcus said quietly. I'm warning you. The commander turned and left, but something unsettled him. That night, security logs showed minor fluctuations in power grids. Insignificant. Barely measurable. But spreading. The living network was waking. In the darkness, Erin pressed her palm fully against the wall. Silver light pulsed softly beneath the metal. Marcus watched carefully. How long now? He whispered. She closed her eyes. Soon. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the prison complex. Inside, something far more dangerous was forming. Not a riot. Not an attack. A shift. And once that shift reached critical mass, even an empire built on domination would tremble. The Zegri believed power came from control. They did not realize that something alive was growing inside their walls. By the fourth week, small failures began to appear throughout the prison. Lights flickered for a second too long. Door panels hesitated before opening. Surveillance feeds glitched with faint static. Engineers blamed old wiring. But the prison was new. Deep inside the metal walls, something thin as veins and bright as silver threads was spreading. Erin sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes glowing faintly as her hands rested against the wall. Marcus watched her carefully. It is learning, she whispered. Learning what? Marcus asked. How they think. How their systems pulse. It listens to their energy patterns. Marcus smiled faintly. So it's studying them. Yes. He leaned back against the cold metal. Good. Humans always study the enemy. Erin opened her eyes. Your species adapts quickly. We have to, Marcus replied. Earth tried to kill us long before aliens did. She tilted her head. Your world attacked you. He chuckled softly. Storms. Diseases. Wild animals. Harsh winters. We survived because we worked together. Her eyes shimmered gently. Like my people. Exactly like your people. Outside their cell, tension was rising. Other prisoners had started communicating through simple rhythms, taps along walls, repeated movements during meal hours, synchronized silence when guards shouted. It was not organized rebellion. It was something quieter. Unity. Commander Vextal reviewed the reports with growing frustration. Power loss in Block 7. Security glitch in Corridor 3. 2 guards report prisoners maintaining eye contact. The last report made him slam his claw against the console. Eye contact, he growled. They are captives. His second-in-command spoke carefully. The human influences morale, Commander. Then isolate him. We attempted psychological pressure. It did not work. Vextal narrowed his eyes. Increase food restrictions. Double patrols. Back in the cell, Marcus noticed the change immediately. Rations were smaller. Guards were harsher. But instead of weakening morale, it strengthened resolve. Marcus shared his reduced portion without hesitation. Others followed. The Zegri did not understand the effect. Scarcity usually created desperation. Here, it created solidarity. One night, alarms briefly flickered. For less than 3 seconds, the surveillance system went dark. Marcus looked at Erin sharply. Was that you? Her eyes glowed bright silver. It was us. He felt a surge of hope. How much control? Not control, she corrected gently. Influence. She stood and placed both hands against the wall. Silver light pulsed stronger than before. The network now reaches the central power core, she whispered. It can overload circuits. Marcus thought quickly. Can it open cells? Not yet. But soon. He paced slowly. We cannot rush this. If it fails once, they will scan everything. Erin nodded. Patience. Marcus stopped walking. Do your people have a word for quiet strength? She smiled faintly. We call it Velir. It means steady flame. He nodded thoughtfully. Humans call it resilience. Outside, Vextal made a decision. He entered the prison chamber again, flanked by elite guards. He stopped before Marcus's cell. You infect this place, Vextal said coldly. Marcus stood calmly. I treat people like people. You undermine order. No, Marcus replied evenly. I reveal weakness. The commander stepped closer. You think your compassion spreads strength. Marcus met his gaze. I know it does. Vextal's tail lashed. Tomorrow, the Lyrian will be relocated. Marcus felt tension spike in his chest but did not show it. On what grounds? She is valuable. I will not allow contamination of her thinking. Erin stepped forward calmly. You fear thought, she said softly. The guards hissed in shock. Vextal's eyes burned. Silence. Marcus moved subtly between them. If you move her, you break your public honor. Vextal paused. Zegari law was rigid. A declared gift could not be reversed without consequence. Marcus pressed forward. Your officers would question that. The commander's jaw tightened. You gamble much for a prisoner. Marcus shrugged lightly. I'm human. We gamble on impossible odds. For a long moment, silence held the air. Finally, Vextal turned sharply and left. But he was no longer confident. That night, Erin's network reached critical expansion. Across multiple sectors of the prison, faint organic filaments had replaced sections of wiring. They responded to her thoughts like an extension of her nervous system. It is ready, she whispered. Marcus took a slow breath. No violence unless necessary. She nodded. The next day, during shift rotation, Marcus gave a subtle signal. 3 slow taps against the wall. Across the prison, it echoed. 3 taps. Velir. Steady flame. Erin closed her eyes and extended her awareness. Silver light surged through hidden channels. Power conduits overloaded, not explosively, but precisely. Door locks disengaged. Surveillance screens went dark. Shock battens short-circuited. For 6 full seconds, the prison lost control. Cells slid open. Prisoners stepped into corridors, stunned. Marcus raised his voice calmly. Do not attack. Move together. The 4-armed prisoner from earlier stepped beside him. Others joined. No screaming. No chaos. Only movement. Guards attempted to restore order, but their weapons failed. Vextal watched from command as systems flickered wildly. What is happening? He roared. Engineers scrambled helplessly. It's not mechanical failure, one said nervously. It's organic. Vextal's blood ran cold. In the prison corridor, Marcus stood at the front of a growing crowd of freed captives. Erin stood beside him, glowing softly. This is not revenge, Marcus called out. This is freedom. The prisoners moved toward the hangar sector. Not as a mob. As a wave. Controlled. Focused. Vextal activated emergency protocols. Security doors slammed down ahead of them. Marcus glanced at Erin. She nodded. Silver light surged again. The doors trembled. Organic tendrils forced circuits to unlock. Metal parted. The hangar bay opened before them. Ships. Small transport vessels. Escape. Marcus turned to Erin. You built cities from living systems, he said quietly. Today you built hope. She smiled softly. You showed us how to light it. Behind them, alarms blared violently. Zegri forces mobilized. Vextal stormed toward the hangar personally. This was no longer a prison disturbance. This was ideological infection. And it was spreading. As the first transport ship powered up, Marcus looked back at the approaching commander. Their eyes met across the distance. Vextal saw something terrifying in the human's expression. Not hatred. Not rage. Conviction. And conviction was harder to kill than any soldier. The engines roared to life. The revolution had begun. The first transport ship barely cleared the hangar before Zegri intercept cannons fired. Blue plasma streaked past the hull. Inside the crowded vessel, freed prisoners gripped walls and each other. Fear returned for a moment. Marcus stood near the cockpit window, steady. Hold course, he said calmly to the four-armed pilot beside him. The pilot glanced at him. They will shoot us down. Not if we give them something harder to hit, Marcus replied. Behind them, more ships lifted off. Not all would make it. But enough might. On the command deck of the prison fortress, Commander Vextal watched in fury. Scramble interceptors. Disable. Do not destroy. I want the human alive. His officers obeyed instantly. Outside, sleek Zegri fighters launched in tight formation. Inside the transport, Erin placed her hands against the control panel. Silver light flowed from her fingers. What are you doing? Marcus asked. Borrowing their systems, she answered softly. The living network she had grown inside the prison had not stayed behind. It had spread into docking ports, refueling lines, maintenance conduits. It was already inside several Zegri vessels. On Vextal's screen, targeting systems flickered. Commander, an officer said nervously, guidance systems are misaligning. Vextal snarled. Override manually. But the disruption was subtle and intelligent. Not total failure. Just enough delay. The transports scattered in unpredictable vectors. Marcus turned to Erin. Can you reach their fleet? Not fully, she replied. But I can confuse them. That was enough. One interceptor veered off course after its navigation glitched. Another lost targeting lock for 3 critical seconds. 3 seconds was all Marcus needed. He grabbed a comm unit from the cockpit. This is Captain Marcus Chun of the United Earth Coalition, he broadcast on open frequency. Zegri forces, stand down. Your system integrity is compromised. Further aggression will result in total network failure. Vextal heard the message clearly. You threaten me with sabotage, he roared. Marcus's voice returned calmly. No. I'm offering you a choice. The word echoed in Vextal's mind. Choice. The human's constant weapon. Meanwhile, the transports reached the edge of the prison's defensive perimeter. A heavy cruiser blocked their path. Its cannons powered up. Erin closed her eyes tightly. Her species had never built weapons. But they understood life. And life adapted. Silver filaments already inside the cruiser's maintenance circuits surged at her command. Not to destroy. To overload cooling systems. The cruiser's weapon arrays overheated instantly. Power diverted automatically to prevent meltdown. The firing sequence halted. On the cruiser's bridge, alarms screamed. Cooling cascade failure, engineers shouted. Vextal stared in disbelief at the cascading malfunctions spreading through his fleet. This is impossible. No, his second-in-command whispered quietly. It is different. In the transport cockpit, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. They rely on domination, he said. We rely on connection. The transport ships cleared the blockade and entered open space. But the battle was far from over. Zegri reinforcements were en route. Marcus opened a long-range channel. United Earth Coalition Command. This is Captain Chun. Multiple allied species liberated. Zegri prison compromised. Request extraction corridor. Static filled the line. Then, Captain Chun? We thought you were dead. Not today, Marcus replied. A pause. Extraction fleet mobilizing. Hold position. Behind them, Zegri fighters regrouped. Vextal activated a direct channel to Marcus's ship. The commander's scaled face filled the screen. You infect my empire, Vextal hissed. You turn slaves into soldiers. Marcus shook his head. No. I remind them they were never slaves. You think this changes anything? Vextal demanded. We will conquer again. Maybe, Marcus answered calmly. But now every world you invade will remember this. Vextal's eyes narrowed. Remember what? That the strongest empire in this sector was disrupted by kindness. The commander growled. You mistake mercy for power. Marcus leaned forward. No. I redefine power. Suddenly, space rippled behind the transport fleet. Blue-white flashes tore open as United Earth warships exited hyperspace. Massive human cruisers formed a protective wall. Their weapons powered up, but did not fire. Zegri forces hesitated. Vextal stared at the human fleet. You bring war to my doorstep, he said quietly. Marcus's voice remained steady. I bring balance. The Earth Fleet commander appeared on screen. This is Admiral Reyes of the UEC. Zegri vessels, stand down or be disabled. Vextal calculated quickly. His fleet was compromised internally. His weapons overheated. His prison destroyed. His psychological control shattered. For the first time in his command, he faced uncertainty. He could attack and risk total loss, or withdraw and preserve strength. Marcus spoke one final time. Commander Vextal, your people believe the strong dominate the weak. Today you learn something new. Silence hung between them. The strong can choose not to. Those words struck deeper than any missile. Vextal cut the channel. Slowly, Zegri ships powered down weapons. They retreated. Not defeated, but changed. Inside the transport, a wave of relief spread. Prisoners embraced one another. The four-armed pilot laughed loudly. Erin looked at Marcus. It worked. He nodded softly. It began working the moment you believed it could. She studied him carefully. You changed them. No, Marcus said gently. We did. The human fleet escorted the liberated ships towards safe territory. Behind them, the Zegri prison floated damaged but intact. Vextal stood alone on his command deck. He replayed footage of Marcus kneeling before Erin, of prisoners standing calmly instead of rioting, of weapons failing because systems refused to obey. The human had not crushed him. He had confronted him with a mirror. And Vextal did not like what he saw. But something else stirred inside him. A question. Could power exist without chains? On the human cruiser, Marcus finally allowed exhaustion to show. He sat quietly in the medical bay as doctors checked former prisoners. Erin approached him. My people lost our world, she said softly. But today, we gained something. What's that? Marcus asked. Proof that strength is not cruelty. He smiled faintly. Humans aren't perfect, he said. But we try. She extended her glowing hand. Velir, she whispered. Steady flame. Marcus clasped her hand carefully. Resilience. Outside the viewing window, stars stretched endlessly. The story was not over. The Zegri Empire still ruled many systems. But now, in quiet corners of occupied worlds, whispers had begun. The human who refused to own. The captain who knelt. The empire that hesitated. And once an empire hesitates, it starts to think. Months passed. The galaxy did not explode into war. Instead, it changed. At first, the shift was almost invisible. Zegri patrol ships began hesitating before planetary bombardments. Prison camps quietly reduced punishments. Some officers requested reassignment rather than enforce slave discipline. Rumors traveled faster than fleets. They spoke of a human captain who had been given a slave and refused to claim her. They spoke of a prison that fell without massacre. They spoke of an empire forced to stand down, not by destruction, but by disruption. Hope, once ignited, spreads like light. On Earth, Captain Marcus Chun stood before the United Earth Council. He did not wear medals. He did not ask for promotion. He gave a simple report. The Zegari are not mindless monsters, he said calmly. They are trapped inside a system built on domination. If we crush them completely, they become martyrs to their own ideology. One council member frowned. You suggest mercy. I suggest pressure, Marcus corrected. Economic disruption. Communication broadcasts. Offer alternatives. Show them cooperation is more efficient than conquest. Another member leaned forward. And if they refuse? Marcus's eyes hardened slightly. Then we defend ourselves. But we defend our values first. Across the galaxy, Erin stood among surviving Lyrians aboard a rebuilt habitat station. Her people had lost their homeworld. But they had not lost their identity. Using human resources and Lyrian bioengineering, they began growing new cities, living structures that pulsed with silver light. She addressed her people. Strength is not domination, she said softly. It is adaptation. We adapt. Her voice carried calm confidence. Nearby, human engineers and Lyrian scientists worked side by side. Organic walls grew around steel frames. Technology blended. Cultures blended. In Zegari space, Commander Vextal stood before the Imperial War Council. His scales were darker now. His posture heavier. You hesitated, one council elder accused. You allowed prisoners to escape. You allowed humans to mock our authority. Vextal did not flinch. I prevented fleet collapse, he replied evenly. Their infiltration was organic and undetectable. Continued aggression would have resulted in catastrophic loss. You sound defensive. No, Vextal said quietly. I sound observant. He activated a projection. Footage of Marcus kneeling. Footage of prisoners standing united. Footage of weapons overheating from internal disruption. They did not defeat us with firepower, Vextal continued. They defeated us with cohesion. The council shifted uneasily. Our system creates fear, Vextal said slowly. Fear creates compliance. But compliance is brittle. Silence filled the chamber. One elder hissed softly. You propose reform. I propose evolution, Vextal replied. Months earlier, such words would have been treason. Now, they were possible. Back on Earth, Marcus received a private transmission. The Zegari seal appeared. He answered without hesitation. Vextal's face appeared on screen. You live, the commander observed. So do you, Marcus replied. A long pause passed. You infected my empire, Vextal said. Marcus shook his head gently. No. I showed it an alternative. Vextal's yellow eyes flickered thoughtfully. Your species is dangerous. Marcus smiled faintly. We've been told that before. You do not dominate when you can. No. You offer enemies a path to cooperation. Yes. Vextal studied him. Why? Marcus answered simply. Because history shows empires built on fear collapse. Systems built on choice endure. Silence again. Then Vextal spoke quietly. The Zegari Empire will open negotiations. Marcus nodded slowly. That's a start. Negotiations were not easy. Centuries of conquest could not be undone overnight. But trade routes reopened. Joint scientific missions began. Lyrian bioengineering was shared carefully with oversight. Zegari military doctrine shifted from expansion to territorial defense. Not perfect, but different. On a neutral station orbiting a distant star, Marcus and Erin met again. The station was half metal, half living architecture, a symbol of unity. You changed the course of an empire, Erin said softly as they looked out at the stars. Marcus shook his head. No. You gave me the tool. She smiled faintly. You gave it direction. He considered that. Maybe that's humanity's role, he said thoughtfully. Not the strongest. Not the most advanced. But the ones who connect the pieces. Erin's eyes shimmered silver blue. Velia. Resilience, Marcus echoed. Across the galaxy, former prisoners rebuilt lives. The four-armed pilot became a transport captain in a joint fleet. Lyrian scientists led ecological restoration projects on damaged worlds. Even within Zegri ranks, younger officers studied cooperative strategy instead of pure conquest. And Commander Vextal, once a symbol of domination, became the first Zegri official to sign a non-aggression pact with humanity. The galaxy did not become peaceful overnight. There were still conflicts. Still mistrust. Still scars. But something fundamental had shifted. The strongest empire in that sector had learned hesitation. And hesitation leads to thought. Thought leads to change. Years later, historians would look back at the moment everything turned. Not at a great battle. Not at a superweapon. But at a single human kneeling before a captive and saying, "You are under my protection." That act traveled farther than any missile. It reached into systems and minds. It redefined strength. Humanity did not shout its power. It demonstrated it. Not through domination, but through choice. And that choice echoed. Across worlds. Across species. Across time. Because when humanity stands at impossible odds, when it faces cruelty with conviction, when it chooses compassion over control, it does something the universe never expects. It changes the rules. And that is why humanity endures.